All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Goal Getter podcast. Today, we're joined by Jenny Beres, the co-founder of Pink Shark PR, a Los Angeles-based woman-owned agency specializing in public relations for fintech founders, VC firms, financial services, AI, cybersecurity, and innovative customer brands. Her clients have been featured everywhere from the New York Times to Fast Company to Forbes. She's a master at translating technical or high-stakes topics into compelling stories for both industry experts and everyday audiences. She's also the host and writer of Fintech and Friends and has built a network of over 13,000 professionals and business owners aimed at sharing actionable storytelling techniques and media strategies that empower women to amplify their story. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We're super excited to have you here.
Grace, Nat, thank you so much for having me. I admire you both so much. You are both such bosses, so it is such a pleasure to have this conversation.
That's so nice. So let's just go back to the beginning because I think what you do is super like niche and way too smart for my brain to comprehend. So let's just go way back. Like, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Did you think as a kid you were going to do what you're doing now?
That's such an interesting question. So I am originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So I'm a big Browns fan. so, um, and I lived in Florida for a little bit. Then I went back to Ohio. And then 15 years ago, I ended up in Los Angeles kind of as an experiment. I ended up getting a screenwriting deal. So I moved here to see that through. And then I just never left, and so built the agency here with my best friend and co-founder. um it's funny, when I was little, like I loved sales and storytelling. So I didn't know what PR was, obviously, when I was little, but I was always selling something. I was just at home too, and my mom asked me, she's like, "What did you actually want to do?" Because I had a lot of interest. I said I wanted to own a company, and she goes, "Well, I guess you did it." I I sold things to my class. I got in trouble all the time. I would come up with things, not even cool things. I mean, I found these rocks in my backyard. I thought they were real cool. They were like these shiny green rocks, and I was like, clearly these are magic. So I sold them to the class, and then I made $35 off my sixth grade class.
Wow.
Okay.
And then parents called my mom. They were really upset. Apparently, those were stones that are in kitty litter, and I took them off and sold them to her.
Oh, no.
Dumping cat litter in my parents' backyard. I made money off of it. But I always like to write. I do have a background as a playwright as well. And I'm always fascinated by other people's stories. I was fascinated by journalism. So I think that my career now is really the culmination of storytelling, journalism, and sales.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It's always funny to hear people's backstories and where they start and if they thought they were going to be where they were as a child or not. And I love a little story like that.
Yeah, I
That's
was
awesome.
a nuts little kid. I was always trying to rope my cousin and everyone into like my new business. Like I had wanted to, I was really obsessed with Mariah Carey, and I had seen this interview with her manager, and I was like, oh, I should be a manager. So I tried to get my cousin and these other little girls to do this singing group, and I was going to manage them. And I was so disappointed by their work ethic. Like no one showed up. No one said that did what they said they were going to do. And I'm like, you guys, City Girls gonna flop. Okay, City Girls is going to flop here, and no one cared. No one cared. So, wild venture when I was a kid.
I love that. The original City Girls. That's great.
Girls, but I was always thinking very much like a business, like a business owner. And I think my parents thought I was playing, like in the playroom, but I was not playing. Like mentally, I was not playing. I was working with limited resources, but I was not playing.
So was there a specific moment when you realized you wanted to focus on working in industries like fintech or AI or cybersecurity that are kind of known for being so male dominated?
Yeah. So I was in my early 20s and I didn't know any better. And I'm super glad that's how that panned out, because I kind of just follow my interests blindly. And I kind of I put blinders on. I don't really think, it wasn't until I got older and a little bit more savvy about the world and about women's role in the world that I was like, oh, wait a second. So I always like to joke around that in my early 20s, I just got yelled at by like CEOs who were technical founders. And I was a copywriter at the time. And I was like, yeah, but tell me what it does, and they'd tell me all this crap about their tech company. I'd be like, yeah, but what does it do? And they would so mad at me. And then they'd finally tell me what it did. And then I would go like, write some copy for it, whatever. But I mean, that was just an accident on its own. I mean, I literally went from being a waitress to owning a company, like to owning a business. I didn't have like, I didn't work in-house anywhere. I didn't have any of that experience, but I remember waitressing and I was getting like kind of tired of it. And I was like, I'm a really good writer. And I see that people write this. I didn't even know it was like marketing copy. I didn't know anything. But the reality is I started with, I didn't know a damn thing like at all. And I was like, well, I am enthusiastic. I'm a good writer. And so I just started like cold emailing tech companies that I thought were interesting and being like, listen, like I'm new. I'm not going to charge you that much. I'm going to charge you something because I don't believe you're working for free. But if I could beat what I'm making waitressing and learn how to do this, cool. So
Yeah.
that's how I started working in really complicated technologies. And I had to just listen and simplify underneath the message because like the technical founders, especially men, so convoluted, and it's like, it's not that special. Like, it's just not like, it's not that special. Just like spit it out, and so that's how I started.
That's great. But so
Love
in
it.
my mind, you made two very bold and different choices. One was to focus in this sort of field. And then the second is when you started your own agency, both big decisions. When did you realize it was time to do your own thing?
So before I had Pink Shark PR, I had a small copywriting business. It was just me, and occasionally I had a friend that like would come on and help me. And I was copywriting, but then I didn't know that what I was thinking about was PR because I started to get frustrated that we were doing really cool things, like the clients that I had. We were doing really cool things, but nobody was seeing them. And so that's when I started saying, like, I'm just going to email TechCrunch. I mean, this was just such, like, I was so naive, I was just like, I'm going to just email TechCrunch and tell them about this. And then I did that and I sold the story. And I sold the story in like 10 seconds. And my clients were like, okay, like there's something here. So I worked like that for a very long time. I had clients. So I had this business. And then my best friend and she and I met in a screenwriting class in Los Angeles. We became very close friends. And then she kind of had some ideas on how we could expand what I was doing. So we started doing some consulting together, brought on some more clients. And one day she called me and she had really wanted this to be a full-blown agency, or at least be called an agency. And I was very reluctant to have an agency because after now spending over 10 years working with founders, I discovered that
Mm.
most founders really don't like their agency. Like, people complain about their agency a lot. And I was so terrified that I would end up like one of those, I had great relationships. I was terrified that like some reason I would not have these great relationships. And so my best friend was like, they're not going to just think you're a scumbag all of a sudden because you have an agency. Like, you're still going to be you. And so she was sitting at the airport and she was like, what are you doing right now? And I was like, well, I'm booking so-and-so for Forbes. And she was like, oh my God. She's like, this is an agency. And there's this dude sitting next to her and he was wearing a pink shirt and it had great whites on it. And she was like, oh my God. She's like, we're Pink Shark. End of story. Encapsulated like who we are because we're women owned. We're aggressive, but we're feminine, and we have a really fun way that we approach things. But we're definitely sharks in the water, for our clients and for our company. So that's how we became kind of morphed into the agency.
That's such a fun way to get the name.
Yeah.
Very inspired. It was really one of those like inspired, intuitive moments.
Since that all happened, you've landed your clients' coverage in some of the most influential outlets in the world. What do you think sets your agency apart from others in the PR space?
That's such a great question because I have mad respect, obviously, for my colleagues. I think that my colleagues are brilliant. I think that comms people have to make the impossible happen, every single day. But I have a very, very different background. I have a different trajectory. A lot of my comms colleagues, they studied a very traditional way into PR. They have, communications degrees or PR degrees. I worked on the founder side first. I learned the industries that I rep first. And I'm just a natural communicator. And then I learned PR second, and I didn't learn
Mhm.
textbook PR. I do believe in the fundamentals of PR, and I obviously apply those. And ironically, now that I don't need it, I am going back to school because I want to see what traditional folks are taught,
Mhm.
in school. So I am currently in school. And I had to do it this way. Like, it was never going to go the other way. Like, I had to build something first, go back to school later. But I think that the difference is, one, I'm a business owner. So being a business owner, I have a lot of grit. I do not quit. You would literally have to put a bullet in my head to get me to stop doing what I'm doing. Like, there's just no end. It is almost, and a lot of my colleagues, they work for other people. They work for agencies. They have very much like a 9 to 5 mentality. And then for a lot of the agency owners I know, they have a lot of grit, but they do come from a traditional academic background. And I very much come from tech, and I come from just business and figuring things out. And so I really think I put together my career and the way I go about it very, very differently. So I think that with that comes a lot of grit, a lot of aggressiveness. And I pivot very fast. As a business owner, I mean, you both know this, you have to pivot very, very quickly. And so I take that into my discipline. Like, if a story is not selling or if something's not happening, like, I am pivoting quickly. I'm selling a different story. I'm figuring out a different spin. I'm working and collaborating, with reporters to figure out what it is that they do find interesting about a certain topic. So I think I just come
Mm.
to it, and then my team, we come to it with a very different mentality.
So, like you mentioned, you are leading a women-owned agency, and it's an industry that's still like women are still underrepresented, right? How has that shaped you when it comes to hiring, working with your peers, and leading the agency overall?
Yeah, it's funny because women are such excellent communicators. We are such great communicators. We are, men don't hold a candle to us when it comes to subtleties and nuance and telling great stories. But you're absolutely right. Out in the world, men are still dominating in PR, especially as far as like agency ownership. So I really pour a lot of that love, obviously, into my team, and obviously into the reporters that we work with. Female reporters have they're kind of like on the other side of the looking glass. They are
Mhm.
also in a male dominated field. I really feel like my reporters really help build up my female clients, and vice versa. But I'm really aggressively working on telling innovative female stories, because the real issue here is that women are terrified of visibility, and it's not our fault. It's not our fault. It is just how we've been taught. It's what's been, it's the lies that have been told to us, from the patriarchy. And so I really pour my effort and my love into making sure that my clients are comfortable being visible. And even when they're not, we're gonna do it anyway, because the more female stories that we get out there, the more women PR reps that reporters work with, the more female reporters that are getting accolades for their stories. It all lifts all of us up at the same time.
Definitely. I think a lot of people have an idea of what like a marketing professional does, or a comms professional, or you just think, oh, social media, emails, that's just kind of what pops into mind. But I think PR can sound a little bit intimidating to a lot of people, and they're not really sure what that actually is. Bottom line definition of what PR really is. What is one myth that you would like to debunk about PR as a whole?
Oh, it's great. So I think that people think that PR is just reduced to media relations, or just
Mm,
putting out a press release on the wire. And I like to explain PR to people as, you're really controlling your public narrative. So think about PR as the bridge of trust between your company and the public. It's a very sacred space, because when PR is done well, and I only work in earned media, I think that sponsored media has its role, but it's advertising. I don't consider that PR, because PR is measured, like a good public persona is measured by what's earned. How valuable anyone could pay to get in the New York Times, but if the New York Times
mhm.
doesn't feature you for free, that is communicating something to your audience. It's communicating something to the public. So there are a lot of things that go into that, from shaping, company culture, to shaping internal comms, to shaping how you talk to reporters and media relations, what you decide to announce, what you decide to, how a CEO or executive team, like how they show up in speaking engagements, on podcasts, on television, and really with the goal of what are they communicating to the public? Is this building trust between are you building a relationship built on trust and respect with the public? And the myth is that if you don't do PR, like you do PR or you don't do PR. And the myth is all of us are doing PR, whether we're actively engaged in it or not.
Mm.
You either have control of your public narrative or the internet has control of your public narrative. So if you're not doing PR and you're like, oh, I don't need it, you already have it. It's just who's control. And so I think that is the biggest myth. And I think when you think about it as that ongoing, effort that you're putting in to build trust between you and the public, I think it becomes a lot easier. And then obviously you kind of have to roll with things as they come.
That's such an interesting way to
Interesting.
put it. Yeah, PR is happening whether we like it or not.
It is.
Yeah. So I think in this digital era, we are like as users, as audiences, we are tired of seeing content that is clearly written by or for other devices or like a computer. So I think you've mastered dealing with very complex and translating these complex topics into stories that resonate. How do you find that human angle so people can resonate with those stories?
Yeah. So I focus on the founder and not the company because nobody cares about your product that much. I mean, no one cares about your product that much. No one cares about your company that much. The company does, the founders do, the employees do, the customers that have, those touch points, they do. But the general public and the media and the audience, they don't. They want to know the human, and the human behind the company is such a far more engaging and compelling sales tool than whatever product you just rolled out will ever be. And so many people want to blow past that and say, well, because they're excited or they've invested a lot of money or whatever it is, they get very excited about whatever it is that they're building. But it's you. It's you that people want to hear from. So I really, really drill home the founder story. Who are you? Oh, why are you doing this? Every founder, if you've chosen to be a founder of a company, why? Like, why? Like, what was so crazy in the world that you decided to take on this kind of responsibility, that this is what you're going to do? Like, and usually you hear these stories of like the best founders have been personally affected by whatever it is that they set out to solve.
Mm.
And so there's always a human story. The thing is, the human story is always available to us. It's just I make sure they don't overlook it.
I think it's interesting. I think that's a conversation that's been going on a lot more now in the world. So Nat and I both work in the nonprofit space, and I think I've seen in that conversation come up a lot about how you can translate what your nonprofit is trying to tell, what story you're trying to tell, right? I think there's a lot of organizations, not just in the nonprofit space, that struggle with that. Like, oh, I want to tell my mission, right? Plain and simple. Okay, but not everyone's going to connect to that mission. You need to actually connect them with the story about how you came up with that mission or who's actually working on that mission. I think it's a super interesting conversation that I'm glad is getting more attention out there now, because I think there's a huge switch in the industry, and that's only going to get better, hopefully,
Yeah,
and be able to connect to more people.
I agree with you. And I think that, AI has driven us to be better. Like, because
Hmm.
it's not enough now to be mediocre and just surface level, because AI can be surface level for us.
And you
And
can
Hmm.
tell right away. Anyone's like,
right,
oh, that's AI, or you helped AI, or why aren't you really connecting, right? Because people are yearning for that connection.
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like AI has opened up a really great opportunity for us to be more human than ever. We just have to not be afraid to dig into it.
I love that. And I think going back to one of the questions that I asked before, I think social media and PR often get lumped together under one umbrella, but they work very differently, as you touched on before. How should leaders be thinking about them separately, but also as a complementary tool?
So if you have a great PR strategy and you are working on, aggressively like putting yourself out there and getting earned media, whether that's, I like to do a variety. So that's like TV, podcasts, speaking engagements, digital, print, all of the above. If you are working on those items, your social media is going to become a lot easier because
Fair.
not only do you have like the actual pieces to share, but those pieces together form a narrative. You're talking about similar things. You're also getting like a journalist touch on it. So, like what they think or their spin or their opinions.
Mm,
Now, part of a conversation online, like a community of reporters and publications. And you don't have to sit there and be like, okay, what are we going to post? How are we going to get our message we can't sound too salesy. We need engagement, but we still want to whatever. You don't have to do any of that. You just then say, hey, part of this article and this is, what this article is about. And it's usually an engaging topic because reporters aren't going to write something that's like super advertorial because that's not the jam. And so it really, instead of thinking about them as the same, think about the PR machine as something that fuels what to talk about on social media.
mm.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down for sure for myself.
So helpful. I have so many clients that are like, but social media. I'm like, this will literally take care of itself if you start like talking, out there, out in the
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all the women founders and leaders listening to the pod, what's one mold step you think that they can take to start building more visibility for their brand?
So there's like a mindset component and then there's a practical component. So the mindset component is you have got to be objective about your strengths, your genius, about where you belong. And I want to give a short story. I work with both men and women. And I work with lovely humans. Like if someone's a jerk, I don't work with them. So I do take on very nice men. But there is a difference because of how we are, just trained by society. When I ask a man, when we're doing onboarding, when I ask him what is noteworthy about him, what is special about him, he has no problem answering. In fact, we go way back. We go to kindergarten, we go to what mama said, we go to first grade, we go way back. And when I ask a woman, there is hesitation and we
Mm,
could be talking to somebody who is an Ivy League grad. We could be talking to someone who's got 30 years of experience. We could be talking to somebody who is just smoking men in the AI world, and they will struggle to answer that question.
mm,
Now, you cannot objectively evaluate yourself or your business and make the necessary tweaks for growth if you cannot own where you're awesome, because then you cannot actually evaluate where you actually do need to improve. And if you can honestly own where you're awesome, sending pitches, connecting with reporters, taking criticism, because reporters will come back with, what about this? What about that? Reporters are very not they're not there to prop you up. Their job is not they're not your marketing team. They're there to do a service to the public. Um, your life is going to get a lot easier, and visibility is going to get a lot easier. I would tell any female founder today who has not been taking control of their public narrative, start building a relationship with one reporter. Find one reporter that covers your beat. That, obviously I think it would be awesome to connect with a female reporter because women do lift other women up, especially in this space. See what they write, get to know their content, reach out and don't ask for anything. Introduce yourself, compliment something that you really genuinely connected with, and then tell them what you're available to help with if they need it. So in my case, if you want, I'll give you a client's case. So I have one amazing client who's in AI. I would introduce her and I would say she's available to talk about AI in the workplace. She's available to talk about AI in fintech. She's available to talk about AI in company culture. Just wanted to say hi and put, the feather in your cap, so to speak. Everybody could do that. if you sent one of those a day, you would start building up a nice network of
Mm.
female reporters who can champion your business if you give them the opportunity and if you just aren't clawing for vanity metrics, essentially.
Understanding where you're awesome. I love that line. That's great.
It's so
Um,
important.
it definitely. You gotta hype yourself up. No one else is
Yeah.
going to. So kind of flipping the script a bit, what advice would you tell young women looking to get into PR as a full-time career?
Ah, so it's so funny because I have two trains of thought on this. So as a business owner, I used to tell everyone to start a business. I was like, oh, just start a business, and 20 years, basically, I do believe that business ownership is not for everybody. Yeah, I think that, I have said this before, but I have gone to right up to the line of hell and back, for the company. Pink Shark PR was a toddler during the pandemic.
Mm.
There was, in fintech has had its ups and downs. It's not for someone who cannot take a little. If you've got to lay down at night knowing that feel like everything is in place, even though I think that is a myth anyway, and you have to control every little outcome, I don't know if this is necessarily going to be for you. The flip side is that if you are a woman looking to get into PR, you don't have to have a full blown agency, but just start bringing on your own clients. That is the best
Mm.
way to learn. It is the best way to decide if you want to grow an agency, maybe just have 2 or 3 freelance clients, which you can make a killer living off of, a killer income off of. Or maybe there's one company in particular that you really feel aligns with your values and you want to go work in house for them. But there is, right now on LinkedIn, especially, I see a lot of chatter about how difficult it is to get a comms job right now. I have no difficulty getting clients right now. Like
Mm.
I have more inquiries than I can handle at the moment. And that is because I am controlling that path. If you're a woman looking to get into PR, do not accidentally get into the hamster wheel. Just go directly to your ideal clients, start building those relationships. You can always decide to go in-house later. You can decide to expand into an agency later. But there is an opportunity for you to get started and get paid really well immediately. And I think everybody should start there.
Interesting.
That's nice. That's very great advice. Sadly, this is the last question of the interview. Completely off topic, but it's our favorite question ever, every single time. So, if your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I don't know if necessarily, I don't know, maybe theme song, but also like my hype song. Is kind of like a hybrid. So since I was little, like when City Girls was not working out, Mariah Carey's "Make It Happen" was always the song that I would just crank up. It's got like, and I'm not religious, but it's got like that meaty gospel, like dig
Yeah.
into self, like dig into faith, like all of that like sound. And I just loved it. I loved it. And I feel like so many times, no matter what's going on or if I'm hitting a challenge or whatever, like that is the song. But I think that as far as theme, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to figure it out. Like, it doesn't actually matter what the world throws. Like, I have learned at this point that I'm going to literally make it happen. So it doesn't really matter what the obstacle is.
I love that song. I love Mariah, such a diva. That's a
Such a
great pick.
I'll learn from her.
I love that. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for sharing all your insights and your journey with us. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I think you both asked amazing questions. And again, it was just such a pleasure to get the chance to speak to you both and be part of the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
So, for
you.
everyone listening, make sure to connect with Jenny, check out Pink Shark PR, and follow her work with FinTech and Friends. We will have all the links in the show notes and description. And of course, make sure to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. We're everywhere at Gold Get Her Podcast for updates and great content. And don't forget to tune in because we have bi weekly episodes you don't want to miss. See you soon.
Bye, everybody.